Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sake Revolution. This is America's first sake podcast. I'm your host, John Puma, a sake advocate at large, administrator of the Internet Sake Discord, and the guy around here who does not do the sake samurai duties.
And I am your host, Timothy Sullivan. I am a sake samurai, sake educator, as well as the founder of the Urban Sake website. And every week, John and I will be here tasting and also chatting about all things sake and doing our best to make it fun and easy to understand.
Excellent.
Yes.
So, Tim, I think it's about time for us to get branded once again.
Yes, we're doing another branded episode, and we're going to focus on one specific brand from a great brewery.
Yeah, I'm a minor fanboy
Minor.
of this brand. Minor, I'm not crazy, but I own a T-shirt and an apron. But I'm a big fan. I like their stuff. I think they make really good sake, and I would love to get over there one day. Before I ask you if you've been there, let's talk about the name of this brewery and the brand.
Sure. So the brewery name is Hachinohe Shuzo, and they were founded in 1775, and they're located in Aomori Prefecture. Do you know where that is?
Oh, it's very, very north, but not quite Hokkaido.
Yes.
I've actually come to the realization that I really like sake from northern Japan. From like Akita and Aomori, that whole area, that region really has something special going on. I find myself liking a lot of the stuff from up there. Also, couldn't help but notice you said 1775.
Yes.
So this place is just barely older than the United States.
Just barely. Yes. And Aomori is the northernmost prefecture of Honshu, which is the main island of Japan. So if you go to the very north, as far north as you can go on the main island, the entire top cap of the island is Aomori, and it sits directly opposite of Hokkaido. So Hokkaido is the last frontier, and that's across the water.
It is quite the frontier, though,
Yes.
Hokkaido. Having said that, if I'm not mistaken, the brewery here, Hachinohe Shuzo, is based in Hachinohe City,
Yes.
which is a major city in Aomori, and not tremendously difficult to get to from Tokyo.
Right. Yes. You can get there, and they have direct train lines. You can zip right up the Honshu Island and get right up there.
You can tell I've been researching this. Like, I have plans.
You
I'm
really
going to
wanna
go
go
there
there.
one day. Now, to get this question out of the way, Tim, have you been to Hachinohe Shuzo?
I have been there. Yes. I was interviewed for a Japanese magazine. I'll put a picture in the show notes. But I got invited to visit the brewery, and I actually did a photo shoot there.
You did a photo shoot at Hachinohe Shuzo?
I did a photo shoot.
I like how I'm kind of a fanboy. And you're like, I've done a photo shoot there.
It sounds crazy, but they invited me. It was part of a promotion of a few different breweries, and they asked me as a sake samurai to go up there. I met with the brewery. I did a tasting, and we did a little photo shoot outside, and it was really, really fun. So I have great memories from visiting this brewery.
That's wonderful. Did they let you have the sake before the photo shoot, though?
I think we did a little before and a little after, so it worked out great.
Well, I assume the after. I was wondering before was also part of it. That's great.
I do remember one thing from the photo shoot is that it was pouring down rain. And they really wanted this shot of me outside. They have a very historic building at Hachinohe Shuzo. So the brick storehouse is a national tangible cultural property. And it's very historic looking and very beautiful. And they wanted a shot of me outside. But it was pouring down rain. So the poor photographer was out in the rain, and they said, okay, you stand under the awning. So there was like the roof kind of came out a little bit.
Right.
And they're like, okay, turn this way. And they're like, okay, back up a little bit. And they had a giant sugidama, those those cedar balls that hang outside of
the spherical bush.
Yes. So it's these giant cedar balls hang outside of sake breweries as a symbol of the sake industry. And they said, back up. And I backed up and my head hit the sugidama from behind and all this water came down on me.
So wait, they put you underneath the awning so you wouldn't get wet, and then you found the sugidama with your head.
With my head.
And got wet anyway.
And the photographer took a picture of me like getting the water dumped on me, and which was not in the article, but I do have that picture.
Sign of a good photographer. He nailed the moment. Yes. That's great.
So the brand name for the sake is Mutsu Hassen.
So do we know, like, Mutsu Hassen, do we know what this means? Because when I take the kanji in the brand name and I put it into Google Translate, it translates it as 8 Immortals. Pretty cool name. Now, another thing I've noticed is that a lot of their branding, including like merchandise they make and their website, uses the Arabic numerals 8,000, which is Hassen, which makes sense. So like Mutsu8000.com is like their website. And so I'm like wondering, like, does it go both ways, or did they go into that at all with you when you were there? Or were they busy showering you with rain and sake?
Well, to be honest, I didn't know a lot about the 8 Immortals. So I didn't know enough to ask that question even. But I think the most I know about 8 Immortals is that it has something to do with Chinese mythology. And it may be the original source of their brand name, I'm guessing. But Mutsu Hassen can also mean Mutsu 8000, as you said, if you translate it literally. So they probably thought that would be a more modern take. So when you visit their brewery, all the brewers wear these T-shirts that say 8000 on them, which I think is so cool. You have one of the T-shirts, right?
I do have one of the T-shirts.
Okay.
Fanboy.
More than a minor fanboy, major fanboy.
Well, I've never had my photo taken in front of the brewery, so I don't know how fanboy I am.
Touche, Puma. So Mutsu 8000, I think, is their modern translation of the brand name. I think it's super cool. I'm down with the 8000.
Now, Sake Revolution historians may recall that we once did actually have a sake from this brewery on the show before, but it was not the Mutsu Hassen brand.
Yes.
It was their Otokoyama brand that it was one cup that was super dry.
Yes.
I think we mentioned as like a footnote that they also had this other brand. And here we are talking about that brand.
Yeah. So their original old school brand was the Mutsu Otokoyama. And when you go into this brick warehouse that I was talking about, their original brewery building, there's a beautiful old sign on the wall that says Otokoyama. So that was their like original brand, and it's a very traditional earthy dry sake, as you said. But this is another case of two brothers taking on the reins of a brewery, with the older brother being in charge of the management of the company, and the younger brother is the toji in charge of the brewing. We've heard this story before, haven't we, John?
I feel like we have. I'm getting deja vu all over again. Definitely a tale that has been told. Yes. And I think that's a really cool tale. Every time we've told that story, it has had a very happy ending.
Yes, it's very cool.
So please continue.
Yeah, so Hideyuki Komai, Mr. Komai, Hideyuki is the older brother, and he is managing the brewery. And then Nobuyuki Komai is the toji, the younger brother. And they're both super cool, super engaged, and taking their brewery in new directions and really reviving it for a new generation. So we need people like this in the industry. We're so excited to hear that.
Yeah, and I think that this Mutsu Hassen brand is super modern, getting popularity both in Japan and overseas, because we have been seeing it coming over here. We see it. I've seen it in other countries as well. And I do see it a lot in Japan when I'm there. We've seen this happen before, where younger people take over a company, they make some changes, and then they kind of give a little bit of rebirth and revitalization to their brewery.
Yeah. I think there are a few differences, though. One thing to be aware of is that the Komai brothers have kept up their original brand. So they have not changed everything at their brewery. they have a new direction for a new brand that they've created, which we're going to taste today. But they've honored their previous generations by keeping that Otokoyama brand going. And another thing that's different, we've talked about many other breweries being inspired by wine culture and then going off in a direction that really creates a sake that is truly inspired by wine flavors. And I think that they're creating new flavors at Hachinohe Shuzo, but it's not trying to be wine in any way. Wouldn't you agree?
Right. I think that one of the through lines in a lot of our other episodes on this have been wine influence. And here we're not getting that. Here they're just making a more modern style sake, but they're not going for that wine influenced high acidity style. Yeah. They're just doing their own thing, and which is, again, there's room for that. I think plenty of room for that.
Yeah. One thing we can talk about is the tweaks that they're making to their production method. They have taken the standard production flow and they've made these little changes here and there that produce unique twists on the sakes that come out of it. So it's really interesting to see what they've changed and what types of things they experiment with in their production method that produce slightly different sakes. I mean, these aren't sakes that are so unusual. You're like, is this even sake? What am I drinking? It's not like that at all. They're very delicious, very yummy sakes, but they do things in the production method to take it in a new direction.
Right. One of the things I've always noticed about this brand is that it doesn't, I don't go like, I've never had anything like this before.
Right.
It is,
yes.
They are familiar notes. They are ideas I've tasted before, but I just like their take on it. And that's like consistently, I like the way they go with it, and I enjoy their riff on familiar ideas. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's unique enough, but it doesn't stand out like, oh my God, what is this weird stuff? It's really, it's delicious sake. But it does have a twist to it, which I really like. And there's one major thing that they do, which I think you know what it is, that separates this brewery from most other breweries. And it has to do with their koji.
Yes, that is right. They like to play around with white koji.
Yes, and we've talked about koji on the show before. Let me just give 1 minute of background on this. So koji spores, it's a type of mold that we use in sake production. It's grown on a substrate of steamed sake rice, and this molded rice is then put into the mash, and that's how we break down starch into sugar in sake. And what most people don't know is that there's multiple kinds of koji spores. And most sake breweries are going to use what's called ki koji or yellow koji. So that's for 99% of the places, that is the standard koji strain that they're going to use. There are other types of koji for other beverages. So shiro koji or white koji that you just mentioned is normally used for making shochu.
Yes, I have heard that. I've heard that from shochu people.
Yes,
they're
out there.
They're out there. They're out there. They're blazing a trail of distilled spirits in their wake.
They might be listening right now.
They might be, and I hope they are. Now, having said that, yeah, white koji typically associated with shochu.
Yes,
I do see it occasionally brought up in the sake world, but not with any regularity.
Yes, you do see it occasionally, but it's a very unique choice to choose white koji. And one thing that you want to look for is that white koji produces a higher citric acid. So it makes the sake more acidic in a certain way that you don't get with the yellow koji. So just something to be aware of. So when we taste the sake we're going to taste today that uses the white koji, we can look at the acidity and see if we can get any information off of that tasting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that's come up a lot in our branded series has been an increased focus on local stuff.
Yes.
Local yeast, local rice. Are they doing the same thing? Is Hachinohe Shuzo under the guidance of the Komai brothers? Are they taking that up as well?
Yes. they make it very clear in all their materials that they are dedicated to local ingredients. So all of the rice that they use is from Aomori Prefecture, and they're very, very dedicated to locally grown ingredients. So that's also true for this brewery as well.
Nice. I don't know if it's 5 minutes away nice, but, we'll see. I don't know. It's the mountain. It's cold over in Aomori. It might be a little difficult to travel. We'll give them 15-minute ride away from the brewery to get to the rice paddies.
Yeah. Well, they use Aomori rice and yeast, so both
and the yeast too,
and water.
Oh,
it's
wow.
all local, so it's a huge focus on that for this brewery.
Nice. And they make use of the white koji in a variety of their sakes?
Yes, I think they use it for a number of their sakes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I like it when they do little things a little bit differently.
Yeah, and they also do a few other things. They also use a little bit higher temperature for their fermentation, and I think they have a much shorter shubo time because they're using this higher acid koji. So I think that the shubo, or that yeast starter step in sake, can be a little bit shorter because they don't need that to be quite as long. So they also have that going on as well. So again, it's like all these little tweaks to the production process, and you come out with something that's very much a delicious sake, but it has unique characteristics to it. So very interesting and fun to taste, knowing what's kind of going on behind the scenes.
Nice. And as is tradition, I imagine we've got some sake from them to taste.
Yes,
today,
we
right?
do.
Oh, fantastic. That's what I need to hear.
So John, do you want to introduce the sake that we're going to taste from Hachinohe Shuzo?
I would love to, Tim. So today we're going to be tasting the Mutsu Hassen Isaribi. Now, Isaribi, I Googled this. I was doing a lot of Google translating tonight. Translates roughly into like kind of fishing fire or something like that. I'm gonna ask you what that means in a little bit. But first, I'm gonna go through a little bit more of the details on this. So it's a Tokubetsu Junmai. The rice is milled down to 60% of its original size. The sake meter value is +8. So that's that dry to sweet. So we're looking pretty dry right about here. And the acidity is 1.3. As far as the actual rice information, it just says rice from Aomori. So that goes right in line with them using local stuff. And one thing we know about this particular sake is it does make use of that white koji we talked about earlier.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, well, let's talk about this Isaribi for a second. So the brand name for the sake, as you mentioned, is Mutsu Hassen Isaribi, Tokubetsu Junmai. And the Isaribi, translated by Google Translate, was what? Fishing fire?
Something like that.
John, I want you to look at the label. And for the listeners at home, I'll put a picture of the label in the show notes. But do you see across the top of the label, there's all these little shining, looks like little lights in the distance?
Yeah. So it's the
Almost
label
like,
is a very, very dark blue, almost like if you were painting the dusk. I think you would use this color.
Yes.
And then
blue.
these little lights across the top. It looks like little dots of light.
Little dots of light, right. Well, Aomori, especially Hachinohe City, is known as the place where the most squid is fished in Japan.
Oh.
And the way that they fish for squid is they use these bright lights at night on the fishing boats that attract the squid up to the surface. So they fish at night, and they use these bright lights that are called isaribi. They're fishing lights that attract squid to the surface at nighttime. And that's how they fish for the squid. So the picture on the label is meant to represent viewing all the boats out on the water at night and seeing all the little lights off in the distance that they're using to catch the fish.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, fishing fire. Okay, that makes sense. I can see how that works.
You can see where Google was going with that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Google's always going to do it very literally. Google's not going to know that there's a nomenclature that, well, what they call this very specific thing done with this very specific circumstance. If you're looking to fish this very specific mollusk.
Yes.
So I get it. I get it's a little bit different.
Yeah. So the taste of this sake, I think, is going to be inspired by the local seafood catch, squid in particular, and meant to be something, I think, to tie in with that and pair with that. So when we taste this, we can think about pairing with squid. Is squid something you eat? Is that something you like?
No, I've used it as bait before. No, I'm not a big squid fan.
Okay.
Unfortunately, are you a big squid fan?
I am a very big squid fan. So
All right.
I'll give my 2 cents when the time comes.
This is nice. We usually don't get the pairing portion of the proceedings until after we've tasted.
That's right.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. So
Well-
I think, are we ready?
We're ready.
All right. Tim, that was a hearty pour.
I'm not joking around. All right, so we have our Isaribi Tokubetsu Junmai in the glass. There's a little bit of shade of color to this, but
A little bit.
very, very clear. Let's give it a smell.
The aroma is very pleasant.
Yeah. It's light, but it's fruity.
Very nice. Very pleasant, light, faint fruit. We haven't used wafting from the other room in a while, but it does make me think of that.
Definitely melon aroma, honeydew melon.
Yeah. More honeydew, I want to say, like specifically. A lot of people don't like honeydew. I don't understand. I think honeydew
love
is really
honeydew.
good.
Yeah, right on. I love it.
I get so much shit for liking honeydew.
What?
People are like, ew, honeydew? Like, what are you wasting your time for? Eat the cantaloupe. I'm like, well, I will also have the cantaloupe, but I will have the honeydew if it's there as well. It's part of a fruit salad. You have both.
Yeah. Yeah. So very nice, very pleasant, lightly sweet, some fruitiness.
Yeah. I have to say that when we opened it up, I was bracing a little bit since I'm like getting ready for something that's very squid friendly.
All right. Let's give it a taste.
Let's.
Very fresh.
Ooh. Yeah. And there is a complexity to this. This is nice.
Yeah, it's got some brightness to it. Now that I'm getting the finish is quite dry.
It is.
Yeah.
But the front is a lot of fruit up front. A little bit more than I was expecting.
Yeah.
And then that it does transition into that dry finish in a really interesting way. I'm having a hard time really expressing it. What do you think?
Yeah, it finishes dry, but it's nice and light up front. You know, it's not like one of those super dry sakes where you sip on it and it burns your tongue from first sip to aftertaste. You know, this has a very light, engaging attack, kind of the first part of the taste, and then the aftertaste, the real finish, is dry and crisp and kind of cleanses your palate.
Yeah.
And it's really not too heavy. So everything's been kind of on the light and gentle side, which I really like. I really appreciate that.
I think that a lot of their sake is light and gentle, which again, this is why I'm a fanboy. It's like, you know, that's the kind of sake I like. And even this, they're like unusual, different style of sake they're making still has a lot of those qualities that I really enjoy about their stuff.
Yeah, it's a good blending of just a hint of sweetness, a little bit of savoriness, dry finish. For a light sake, it's got a good amount of complexity there too.
And I am now trying to think a lot about food when I'm having this, since we did talk about that before. And my thought is I want something with a little bit of oil, or like a, because I want that dry sake to cut through it. I want the dryness to cut through that a little bit. I think the two would be a good marriage. I don't have a lot of squid because I'm not a big fan. So where does that fit in for you?
Well, squid is similar to scallops in that super fresh squid or scallops can have a bit of sweetness to them.
Oh.
And I think that combined with the dry finish, just dip some fresh squid sashimi in a little bit of soy sauce, and it has a great texture to it. It's something that I love to eat, and I think that it would pair beautifully with this. So seeing the squid fishing boats on the label and that whole nod to the squid industry in Hachinohe City.
Didn't
really,
think you'd be saying that one, did I? Did you? The nod to the squid industry.
It really makes sense.
And how do you like your squid prepared?
Well, if you get super fresh, like if I was visiting Hachinohe City and you go to an izakaya, they specialize in squid in that area. So you would get squid sliced into little sections as sashimi with soy sauce on the side. Wow. And it is super, super simple, but very delicious. Other places you go in Japan, you can get like squid legs that are deep fried. Those are really good.
Being Italian, I'm familiar with squid legs that are deep fried. But we bread them first.
Yes. Yeah. So there's all different preparations of squid, but I think the sashimi from Hachinohe is probably the best you can get. I mean, it sounds amazing.
I mean, it's like it's their thing. It's what they do.
It's their thing.
And if I'm not mistaken, this brewery is like kind of almost on the water, right?
Yes, it's very close to the water.
Oh, nice.
This is such a refreshing sake too. It's something you can just go in for the next sip, go in for the next sip. It's the lightness to it. What? Is that funny?
No, because now I'm like, yes, that lightness and that constant sipping. This has a place on the Puma couch where I just sit there and sip it and let the evening just kind of fall away.
Now, at the beginning, we talked a little bit about the citric acid from the white koji, and we were going to keep an eye on the acidity. I don't think it's overwhelming at all. I think it's super well balanced. What do you think?
Acidity didn't even enter into my brain when I was tasting this. I mean, I'm aware of that lightness, that light fruit in the front. I'm aware of that transition into the dry, but I didn't really detect that much acidity.
Yeah.
Maybe I should try another cup.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to use this word I always say, which is integrated. So this is very well integrated. The sweetness, the minerality, the umami, the dry finish, the acidity, it's all coming together.
I barely noticed the acidity, but that might be on purpose. All these different factors interplay in a way that nothing really blows you away. Everything is, as you mentioned, tightly integrated. It's all there. It's just not dominant.
Well, don't you think that speaks to the fact that this is not trying to be a wine or something it's not?
No, I think this is something that sake does really, really well. Yeah. Something that great sake does really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this was a nice little discussion about a brand that we're both very fond of. And, you know, you've got some really good memories of bonking your head on
Sugidama.
on the sugidama and getting rained upon, which I imagine was a lot of fun. You are going to post those photos.
Yes.
Not the sugidama one, but the other ones.
No, I have the sugidama one.
You do have that?
Yes,
oh, that's great. Oh, absolutely. So, folks, I haven't seen this photo. I have to see this. This is it's going to make my week to see this photo. So, yeah, I am super excited to see that. I desperately want to get over there one of these days and visit the brewery. It's just I'm a big fan, and they make good stuff. So I definitely want to get over there.
Yeah, and Aomori, I think, is just indicative of so many places in Japan you can go. They all have their local specialty cuisines, their local specialty fish that they have, their local specialty sake ways of brewing, and it just underscores to me how much there is to discover in Japan. So Hachinohe is a poster child for kind of off the beaten track kind of place, but really interesting and lots to discover.
Yeah. I will say one thing, though. When I was originally looking to go to Aomori, and I was looking to, specifically, I wanted to go to Hachinohe because I really like this brewery. And I was researching, like, flying to Aomori, the airport in Aomori City. And then, all right, now I just need to get from Aomori to Hachinohe. And the buses and trains and everything you have to take from Aomori City to Hachinohe is like 5 hours or something like that. It was crazy. And I was like, that's never going to happen. I'm not going to make it to this brewery. And then later on, I found out that, and I think we mentioned this kind of near the open of the show, that you can just take a Shinkansen from Tokyo and it's like 4 hours.
Yeah.
So it is like faster to go halfway across the country up the coast than it is to navigate the mountains in between the airport in Aomori City to get to Hachinohe. Yeah. So I know which way I'll be going.
Yes. You're going to get the Shinkansen with a bento box and a cup sake. I can see it now.
Absolutely. I think it's like 4.5, 5 hours, something like that. Well, do it twice. I don't care. That's great.
Two or three cups.
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully there'll be, hopefully with the destination of Hachinohe City, there'll be some Aomori sake on the train. That'll be nice. Because they do, the ladies with the cart do occasionally have local sake that they sell.
They do.
But it really depends on where you're going.
Yep.
So one time when I was taking a train to Niigata to visit you, actually, I thought there was going to be a bunch of Niigata sake on the train.
Yeah.
But the terminus for this train was Akita. So it was all Akita sake on the train. Also delicious, just a little different than what I was expecting.
Well, I think we have a solid mission accomplished here, discovering another brand and another exciting, interesting brewery. So if you're out there listening to us, please look for Mutsu Hassen brand or Mutsu Otokoyama brand from the Hachinohe Shuzo. And we hope that you will enjoy this Aomori sake next chance you get. Yep,
definitely. You will not be disappointed. You'll not be sad that you tried this sake. It's really good. It's crowd-pleasing sake, I think.
All right. Well, John, great to taste with you as always.
Always a pleasure, Tim.
And I want to thank our listeners as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really do hope that you're enjoying our show. If you'd like to show your support for Sake Revolution, the best way to help us out right now would be to back us on Patreon. We are a listener-supported show with no advertisements, and we rely on our patrons to help us bring Sake Revolution to the air.
That's right, and we really do appreciate everything you guys do to help make that happen. If you are not one of our Patreon backers, we also really appreciate when you support us by listening to the show, by telling your friends, by submitting reviews. All of these things really get the word out about the show, and that is really what does it for us. We kind of love that there's people who actually listen to this thing that we do. It's a lot of fun for us.
Yep. And if you would like to learn more about any of the topics or the sakes we talked about in today's episode, be sure to visit our website, sakerevolution.com, for all the detailed show notes and all the embarrassing, funny pictures you're going to see.
I can't wait for these photos. And if you have a sake question that you need answered, we have an email address for you to send them to. You can reach us at feedback@sakerevolution.com, and we'll be waiting to hear from you. So, until next time, please raise a glass. Remember to keep drinking sake and kanpai.